Hello, I am back with another video and some more Reddit stories. I hope you enjoy. Here is the title to the first story. My manager said I'd never get a raise, so I left and took the clients. I still remember the exact moment my manager, Greg, told me that I'd never get a raise. It wasn't just a throwaway comment. It was said with such conviction and a touch of smugness that it stuck with me for years. But let me start from the beginning. I had been working at this mid-sized marketing agency for almost 5 years. The work was grueling, but I loved it. I enjoyed the challenge of crafting marketing strategies, the thrill of working with high-profile clients, and the satisfaction of seeing real results. Over time, I'd become the go-to person for a number of our most important accounts. I was dedicated, hardworking, and driven to do my best. I'll admit, I was ambitious too. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, to move up to lead. I had dreams of becoming the director of marketing. But I wasn't just dreaming. I was actively working toward it. I took on extra projects, stayed late to get things right, and always delivered. I believed my hard work would pay off. That was until the day Greg, our manager, crushed my hopes. It was just after our quarterly meeting, and I had just presented a marketing proposal that had landed a new client. The presentation went well, and everyone was happy. Greg called me into his office after the meeting to talk about my performance, and in my mind, to discuss the possibility of a raise. You see, I had been there for 5 years without any significant raise, and I was well aware that my salary was falling behind industry standards. I'd had several discussions with Greg about career growth, and every time, he assured me that promotions were coming soon, that I was on the right track. But nothing ever materialized. So, I decided to take the plunge and ask for a raise during this meeting. I walked into his office with my usual enthusiasm, ready to talk numbers. Greg, I started. I've been here for 5 years now, and I've taken on a lot of responsibility. I feel that my contributions are substantial, especially with the new client I just brought in. I think it's time we discuss my salary. I was nervous, of course, but I had every right to be confident. My track record spoke for itself. Greg, who was sitting behind his desk, barely looked up from his computer screen when I spoke. He just nodded and gave me a dismissive wave. Well, I've been thinking about that, Greg said, still focused on his screen. But I think you need to understand something. The company's not in a position to give raises like that, especially for someone in your position. I blinked. What do you mean? I've been here for 5 years, I've consistently delivered top results, and I've managed to bring in high-profile clients. My role has expanded, and my workload has increased. I think I've earned a raise. Greg finally looked up, his eyes cold. Look, Sarah, you're not really in line for a raise. To be honest, you're not really at the level you think you are. We don't have room for someone like you to move up right now. And frankly, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I was stunned. I had expected some negotiation or, at worst, a counteroffer, but this? This was a punch in the gut. So, what are you saying? I asked, my voice shaky, trying to process what he was telling me. Greg leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. I'm saying that you should stop dreaming. You're good at what you do, but you're not getting a raise, and you're certainly not going to get promoted anytime soon. It just isn't in the cards for you here. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and I was getting nothing in return except condescension and rejection. But instead of getting upset or defensive, I did something that surprised even myself. I smiled. You know what, Greg? I said, my voice calm but with an underlying sense of determination. I think you're right. You're not going to give me a raise, and I'm not going to get promoted. But I can do something you haven't considered. Greg raised an eyebrow. What's that? I'm going to leave, I said, straightening up and grabbing my things. And I'm going to take the clients with me. For a second, there was complete silence in the room. Greg looked at me as though I'd just spoken a different language. He didn't seem to understand what I meant. What are you talking about? I didn't give him the satisfaction of explaining in detail. I had made up my mind, and I was done. I had already been talking to a few other agencies, and I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I walked out of his office, handed in my resignation, and started making phone calls. That night, I reached out to the clients I had built relationships with over the years. I didn't just send them a generic email. I crafted personalized messages, explaining that I was leaving the agency and that if they ever wanted to continue working with me, I was available to take on their accounts privately. To my surprise, I wasn't met with rejection. In fact, most of the clients I'd worked with for years were more than happy to continue working with me directly. They trusted me, they knew my work ethic, and they knew I had always delivered results. Within weeks, I had secured several of my former agency's biggest clients, and I was officially running my own freelance marketing business. The revenue was rolling in, and I was doing work I loved, on my own terms. And Greg? Well, he didn't take kindly to losing such valuable clients. When I left, I could feel the tension in the office. I wasn't just a cog in the machine anymore. I had become a threat. But I wasn't worried about Greg. I had moved on, and so had the clients. They knew my worth. Months later, I received a call from a former colleague at the agency. The company was floundering, losing clients left and right, and they were trying to fill the hole I had left. Greg had been forced to do damage control, but it was too late. As for me, I was thriving. Not just in terms of money, but in my career and my confidence. I had proven to myself, and to Greg, that I was worth far more than what he had been willing to offer. Sometimes the best thing you can do when someone tells you that you'll never succeed is to prove them wrong. And that's exactly what I did. I can never understand how companies can be so greedy and not give promotions to their hardest workers. Alright, here is the second story. I hope you enjoy. My boss tried to ruin my career, but karma had other plans. I had been working at a mid-sized marketing firm for 3 years, steadily climbing the ranks from an entry-level analyst to a well-respected team lead. I loved my job, my coworkers were fantastic, and I genuinely felt like I was making a difference. That was, until Martin became my boss. Martin was the kind of manager who thought leadership meant barking orders and taking credit for his team's work. He was condescending, micromanaging, and had a nasty habit of throwing people under the bus when things went wrong. At first, I tried to stay on his good side, but it became clear that nothing would make him happy. The real trouble started when I led a major campaign for a high-profile client. My team and I worked tirelessly, and when we presented our final proposal, the client was thrilled. I was expecting a well-earned pat on the back. Instead, Martin took full credit for the work in a company-wide meeting. At first, I was stunned. Surely, everyone knew I had been leading that project. But Martin was smooth. He spoke as if he had been the mastermind behind every decision. Worse, he even had the nerve to critique some of my suggestions, ones he had originally praised in private. After the meeting, my coworkers came up to me, whispering their support, but no one was willing to stand up to him. I realized then that this wasn't new behavior. He had done this before, and now, he had set his sights on me. Over the next few months, Martin made my life miserable. He started nitpicking my work, assigning me impossible deadlines, and calling me out in meetings for the smallest mistakes. He even went so far as to tell HR that I was difficult to manage. The final straw came when he denied me a promotion that I had clearly earned, giving it to someone far less qualified but more agreeable. I had enough. I started documenting everything. Every email, every meeting, every unrealistic demand. I also started subtly recording conversations where he belittled me or took credit for my work. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with all this information, but I knew I needed a plan. Then came my golden opportunity. We were working on another high-profile campaign, and as usual, I was doing the bulk of the work while Martin swooped in to make last-minute edits. This time, though, I intentionally included a few small errors in my preliminary drafts, things that I knew would cause issues if presented to the client without being corrected. I then sent Martin a revised version, pointing out the necessary fixes. As expected, he ignored my version and took the original draft straight to the client, claiming it as his own. The day of the big pitch, I sat quietly as he confidently presented the campaign. The client's expression shifted from excitement to confusion, then concern. One of the major errors involved outdated analytics, making some of our proposed strategies useless. Another mistake made a key demographic completely irrelevant. The client, a sharp businessman, immediately caught these flaws and started grilling Martin. Martin turned red. He stumbled over his words, trying to shift the blame onto me. Well, my team lead, Ryan, was handling the data analysis, so he must have. Before he could finish, I calmly interjected. Actually, Martin, I sent you a revised version last week highlighting those exact issues. I have the email here if you'd like to review it. I pulled up the email chain on my laptop, displaying it for the client and our senior executives. There it was, clear evidence that Martin had ignored the correct version in favor of his own. The client was not impressed. Neither was our CEO, who had been sitting in on the meeting. The silence was deafening. Then, the CEO turned to Martin and said, "We'll discuss this later." That was the last time Martin ever let a client pitch. But the real twist? Later that day, I received an email from our CEO asking me to meet with him privately. Nervous but hopeful, I entered his office. He closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "Ryan, I owe you an apology," he said. "I've been hearing complaints about Martin for months, but I needed solid proof before taking action. You just gave it to me." I sat there stunned. "I also noticed that you handled yourself with professionalism during that meeting," he continued. "You didn't gloat or throw Martin under the bus, even when he tried to do it to you. That's the kind of leadership we need here." Then he offered me Martin's job. I accepted. Martin was fired by the end of the week. As I packed up my things to move into my new office, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not just because I had gotten justice, but because I had done it the right way. No backstabbing. No manipulation. Just truth, patience, and a little bit of karma. Now, whenever I have a difficult boss, I remember that experience and smile. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply proving you were the right person for the job all along. That is the end of the video. Watch another video of mine if you like. I also have playlists of my videos and my shorts if you are interested. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.